Hello, I'm Jennifer Chen, and this is the tale of how I discovered that the quietest person in the room sometimes holds the most control. For 15 years, I operated behind the scenes at Chen Global Solutions, the tech company my brother Michael and I inherited from our father. While Michael took on the role of the company's charismatic face, I silently worked to expand our business. But sometimes, it's in the background where you truly see people for who they are. I vividly recall the day it all began. Back when our company was just a small consulting business housed in a converted warehouse in Silicon Valley, Dad had built it from the ground up. He learned to code on his own while juggling 3 jobs to provide for us after we moved from Taiwan. Michael was always the golden child, charming, extroverted, and seemingly destined for greatness. Meanwhile, I was the reserved one, the one who spent her weekends coding instead of socializing. When Dad passed away 5 years ago, he left equal shares of the company to both of us. "Look out for each other," he said with wise eyes shifting between us in his final days. "Together, you can accomplish something remarkable." What he didn't know was that I had already been working on something revolutionary, a game-changing, ad-driven cybersecurity system that would eventually elevate our modest firm into a billion-dollar business. The issues began 3 years ago when Michael met Victoria at a tech conference. She was everything I wasn't. Tall, poised, with an MBA from Stanford and an impressive resume with stints at all the right companies. 6 months later, they were married. A year after that, she persuaded Michael that she should join the company. "Vicky's got incredible experience in finance, Jen," Michael had said, his face glowing with excitement. "We really need someone like her to help us expand." I nodded, suppressing my doubts. What Michael didn't realize was that I had already lined up a round of funding through my own network, and our growth plan was already set in motion. Victoria started as a financial consultant, but it didn't take long for her to show her true ambitions. She began attending all executive meetings, offering opinions on everything from marketing to product strategy. She brought in friends from business school for important roles, slowly creating a power base within the company. I observed all of this from my quiet corner office, where I continued refining our core technologies and maintaining relationships with our top clients. Victoria never took the time to learn what I actually did. To her, I was just Michael's quiet sister who lacked the polish and credentials she so valued. Tension between us steadily grew, but I kept my peace for Michael's sake. That is, until last week's party, the event that would change everything. Victoria had just been appointed CFO, a role she relentlessly campaigned for. To celebrate, she hosted a lavish affair at the Four Seasons, inviting Silicon Valley's crème de la crème. The guest list included venture capitalists, tech journalists, and social media influencers, everyone who could help elevate her rising star. I arrived early, dressed in a simple black dress I'd carefully chosen for its understated elegance. Victoria was the center of attention, wearing an extravagant gown that likely cost more than many people's monthly salaries. As I approached to congratulate her, she turned to one of her Stanford friends and said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "Why is the cleaning maid here? This is an executive party." The room didn't exactly fall silent. Silicon Valley parties rarely do. But I felt the awkwardness in the air, the quiet whispers. Michael, standing nearby, looked uneasy but said nothing. That silence was more painful than Victoria's words. "Oh, my bad," Victoria continued, her tone dripping with insincerity. "I forgot you're Michael's sister. It's just that you're always hiding in that back office. I hardly ever see you at company events." She chuckled. "Though I guess someone has to take care of the technical details." I stood there, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. Years of being underestimated, dismissed, watching her slowly try to push me out of my home company. It all crystallized in that moment. But I didn't get angry. I didn't cry. Instead, I smiled, raised my champagne glass, and said softly, "Congratulations on your new role, Victoria. Tomorrow should be very interesting." She barely acknowledged my toast, turning back to her admirers. Michael caught my eye across the room, but I shook my head and left the party early. I had work to do. That night in my home office, I opened my laptop and began preparing documents I had hoped I'd never need. The truth was, Victoria had never bothered to understand the company's ownership structure. 3 years ago, when we needed capital for growth, Michael sold me 17% of his shares to avoid outside dilution. He was so eager to impress Victoria that he signed the papers without fully reading the fine print. Now I own 67% of Chen Global Solutions. I worked through the night, sending emails, calling board members, and preparing announcements for the morning. As the sun began to rise over Silicon Valley, I felt a mix of sadness and resolve. Dad had wanted us to take care of each other, but sometimes taking care of things meant making hard decisions. The next morning, I arrived early at the office. I sat in the conference room, watching the city come to life through the floor-to-ceiling windows. At exactly 9:00 a.m., Victoria strode in, carrying a stack of papers and wearing a confident smile. The smile froze when she saw me seated at the head of the table. "Jennifer, what are you doing here?" "I have a CFO orientation meeting scheduled," she said, her voice trailing off as she noticed the others in the room, board members joining via video conference, our legal counsel, and Michael, who looked pale and shocked. I grinned to myself, reflecting on the countless times Victoria had brushed me aside, treating me as if I were nothing more than a tech support clerk. "Actually, Victoria, we need to address some changes in the company's structure," I said. "What changes?" she shot back, her tone sharp. Her voice, which normally exuded confidence, now trembled slightly. She stood rigidly, hands gripping the back of the chair like it might help steady her. I opened my laptop and projected a document onto the screen. "Starting today, I'm exercising my rights as the majority shareholder of Cheng Global Solutions to initiate a restructuring of the company." "Majority shareholder," she scoffed. Her laugh was sharp and incredulous. "That's preposterous, Michael, and I control 67%, she retorted. I calmly responded, "I hold 67% of this company." I switched to the next slide, showing the breakdown of ownership. "Would you like to see the official documentation?" Her expression shifted from disbelief to anger, then to fear. She turned to Michael. "This can't be right." "Tell her this isn't true," she demanded. Michael looked like he aged a decade in the span of a few seconds. "It's true," he said quietly. 3 years ago, when we needed funds for AI development, I sold Jen part of my shares. I just didn't think." "Didn't think what?" Victoria snapped. "Didn't think your quiet little sister would actually use her power. Never thought she'd have the audacity to challenge me," she seethed. I raised a hand to silence her. "This isn't a challenge, Victoria. It's a correction." I turned toward the board members on the video call. "As the documents I sent show, there have been a series of concerning decisions lately. Unqualified hires with inflated salaries, misdirected R&D funds, and even an attempt to sell our core ad patents to a competitor." Victoria's face drained of color. "How did you find out about the patent sale?" she asked, her voice now shaking. "I finished for her. I built our security systems, Victoria. Did you honestly think I wouldn't have protocols to track attempts to access our intellectual property?" One of the board members cleared his throat. "Jennifer," he began, "we've reviewed the materials you provided, and the board fully supports your proposed restructuring." I nodded in appreciation and turned back to Victoria. "Effective immediately, your role as CFO is terminated. Security will escort you to your office to gather your things." I pressed a button on my phone, and 2 guards entered the room. "You can't do this," Victoria shouted, her composure finally cracking. "Michael, are you really going to let her ruin everything we've built?" she pleaded. "Everything we've built?" I stood slowly, looking her in the eye. "Victoria, while you were planning lavish parties and giving interviews about being a woman in tech, I was the one actually building the future of this company. That security system you tried to sell, I developed it. Those high-profile clients you love to flaunt, I brought them in. The technical details you dismissed as insignificant, they're worth billions." "Michael," Victoria turned to him, her voice desperate. "Do something." My brother looked between us, and for a brief moment I saw the boy who once defended me on the playground. But this wasn't a playground fight anymore. "I'm sorry, Vicky," he said softly. "Jen's right. We lost sight of what this company is truly about." As the security guards escorted Victoria away, her protests echoing down the hall, I felt no joy. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about preservation, protecting our father's legacy, our company's future, and even shielding Michael from his own blind spots. The following weeks passed in a whirlwind of restructuring. I brought back some of the talented people Victoria had pushed out, and we shifted our focus back to innovation. Our stock price soared after we revealed new security patents. Michael and I spent long hours talking late into the night in our old conference room. "I forgot who you really are," he admitted one evening. "Somewhere along the way, I started seeing you through Victoria's eyes, not my own." We both lost sight of something, I replied. We forgot that being family means being honest with each other, even when it's difficult. 3 months later, I received a letter from Victoria's attorney, divorce papers from Michael, along with a hefty settlement demand. I watched my brother sign them without hesitation. You know, he said, setting down the pen, Dad always said you were the smart one. I smiled softly. Dad said we were both smart in different ways. He was right. We just had to remember how to work together. A year has passed since that fateful night at the party, where Victoria had insulted me. Chen Global Solutions has tripled in value. Our eye security system is now an industry standard, and Michael and I have found our rhythm once more. He handles public relations, he excels at that, while I continue to drive the company's technological progress. Just last week, I was invited to give a keynote address at a major tech conference. Standing at the podium, looking out over the crowd, I thought about all the quiet people working behind the scenes, the ones others might overlook. Success isn't always about being the loudest person in the room, I told them. Sometimes it's about being the most observant, the most prepared, and yes, sometimes even the quietest. Because in the end, real power isn't about titles or corner offices. It's about knowing your worth and standing your ground when it matters most. Victoria, the last I heard, she's with a small startup, constantly reminding anyone who'll listen that she used to be the CFO of Chen Global Solutions. Sometimes I see her quoted in articles about women in tech, and I can't help but smile. She still doesn't get it. Leadership isn't about the title you hold. It's about the impact you create. As for me, I keep my father's picture on my desk, his kind eyes reminding me of his final words. Take care of each other. In the end, that's exactly what I did. I took care of the company, of our legacy, and yes, even of Michael. Sometimes taking care means making tough choices. But as long as you stay true to your values, you'll never lose your way. As for the cleaning maid, turns out she always knew exactly what she was doing. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next video. Stay inspired.